My name's Andrew Radford. I, along with my family, run a small restaurant in Edinburgh called Timberyard. Part of my job now is kind of, which I've created, I suppose, myself because I enjoy it so much, is getting out and about and foraging, both for home and for our restaurant. I mean, there's so much out there. You know, if you take the hills that surround Edinburgh, if I go out for an hour or two, I can come back with enough for the restaurant, but also a really nutritional, tasty salad for home for that evening. It's not been covered in pesticides, it's not been forced, it's kind of generally natural, and we all kind of benefit from that, I think. Nature benefits, I benefit from a healthy walk. So yeah, foraging is, for me, it's kind of the way forward. I've enjoyed it for many years and I hope to continue to do it. So yeah, one of my many secret locations, we'll wander up this part of this hill and see what we can find. I've got a little old basket which I've had for a while now. So I've got 3 or 4 different pairs of scissors and I kind of choose a pair of scissors for the day, and the basket is quite important as a kind of open weave basket as opposed to a plastic container, because as I'm walking now, the seeds and the spores of whatever I've picked are kind of dropping and they're being dispersed again for next season. It's all kind of part of it, I think. So that's the basket. Again, that's one of a few baskets. This is a bit of a favourite kind of corner here. These guys, these are nettles. So if I was to touch those, if you touch nettles quite kind of like I'm in charge, they tend not to sting. If you go in lightly and brush, they will sting you. But the nettles are not for now because they're now in flower, and it's better not to use them from a culinary point of view when they're in flower. But further down here, this is the interesting bit and the bit that I'm going to pick. These are dead nettles. They're not of the nettle family, and the stalks and the flowers and the leaves are all edible. So we'll take a few of those. You can pick, if I'm out doing a big kind of forage, I would prefer to cut. It leaves a cleaner, it kind of leaves a cleaner wound really to heal. You know, you're not leaving it all raggedy for anything to get in and damage the plant. That will probably do there. So that'll do a salad. You don't need to cook them. You can cook them. You can make a nice soup out of dead nettles. So this is now in flower. This is rose bay willow herb, which starts, where are we now, August. This kind of starts back at the end of May, beginning of June. You'll see the shoots coming up. And the young tender shoots, there's still a few down here actually, just these little ones. I'll pick that. You can feel that they're really tender because as you break them, there's no kind of stringiness. A bit like kind of poor man's, no disrespect to rose bay willow herb of course, but a bit like poor man's asparagus. It's got that lovely kind of asparagus-y crunch and flavour. The leaves can be eaten raw, put through a salad. Great with fish. And then as the season progresses and the plant matures, they flower. These beautiful kind of fiery flowers, often found by the sides of railway tracks, and were considered by people on the train that the track might have been on fire because they were going past in this kind of blaze of colour. So sometimes called fire sticks, firewood sometimes, but more kind of commonly known as rose bay willow herb. Considered a weed, but really not. The flowers are edible, the stalks, these little kind of seed pods that are left after the flowers go in those. These, a bit later in the seasons, these become this kind of lovely wispy kind of woolen thing. They're quite stringy, and you can just make out, I don't know if you can see it, you can just make out inside that kind of woolly kind of internal bit. I'm rarely asked, but people do consider, what's the difference between a herb and a weed? Rosebay willow herb, for example, is often considered a weed and a pest, and it's quite invasive, and to many it is a weed. It's called rosebay willow herb. To me it's a herb. Possibly not the best example because it's named a herb, but other things that we've just walked over and we'll find a little bit further up, I think, perhaps. There's a little weed, pineapple chamomile, which is so easily overlooked. It's a little yellow flower. It tends to grow in the hedgerow. And if you pick it and rub it in your fingers or squeeze it, there's this amazing kind of pineapple smell to it. And then if you eat it, it tastes of pineapple. And we use that again in salads. You can dry it and it becomes more intense. If I take it back to the restaurant, Joe will often infuse it or put it into a spirit. I tend to, if I see something and it looks interesting, I'll possibly just taste it, and I can, my kind of gut feel is that if it tastes wrong, don't eat it, spit it out. So if we wander on up, there's these two fantastic trees here in the background, and then one beyond with the red berries, rowan trees. There's so many rowan berries this year, and they're that lovely orange at the moment. They'll turn red as the season progresses, and we will harvest those in a few weeks' time when they turn a little bit. They're not far away now, actually. I could take those, but I'll take those back again to the restaurant, and they will impart a rowan flavour, quite acidic. I'm just passing some rather nice sorrel here, actually. If I pop down, and sorrel is one of the, you can't take a bunch of sorrel. If I picked that now, I'd have more grass than sorrel. Sorrel, for some, is slightly, it takes time. You take the leaf, and you take your finger and your forefinger and thumb, and you run it down the stalk. The stalk is good as well, and you pick each leaf individually. Some would say slightly tedious. I would say very kind of mindful and enjoyable. You know, if you want to get in touch with nature, pick some sorrel. You know, it's delicious. You know, in a salad, you can cook with it. I tend not to. It doesn't lose any of its flavour, but it loses all of its colour. As soon as it heats up, if it gets any heat, it will. It goes this sort of dark browny green and doesn't look particularly appetising, but it's still got its kind of vibrant, acidic, lemony flavour. If you're ever out and you're feeling thirsty and you haven't got any water, just take a little bit of sorrel, because it really does quench your thirst. There's some small down here. All this, look at this in here. Never take too much. Always leave some. Well, that you couldn't take too much, I don't think. As an individual doing a bit of foraging for a salad at home, you would never, but always leave some behind for next year and for the birds and the bugs, and yeah. So that's sorrel. I know that there's a little apple tree up here, and they may be ready, so we could have a look at those. So yeah, there's a few here. They're not quite ready. Let's have a look here. Yeah, they need a little bit more, but I'll take a couple because they'll be very tart at the moment. I'll just take a few. We'll probably slice those with the skins on and just toss them into the salad, they'll produce a little bit of acidity, which would be rather nice. So I've just taken half a dozen there. You could put those into a little sugar syrup and just poach them off for probably not long, 10 minutes. They'd be quite firm and tart, but the sugar syrup would add a bit of sweetness, and that would, maybe with some brambles or maybe even raspberries a bit further up the hill, that would make a little pudding. Oh, look at these guys here. Now these are the brambles you want. Easily picked, not too thorny, just lovely. Here we go. Yarrow, or Yarra, sorry, not yarrow, Yarra. Again, I'll cut this. If I tried to break this and pull it, the root would come out, which I don't want to do. So I'll go sort of halfway down and just take that little bit. There's a bit more over here amongst the young gorse. Very kind of earthy and woody, and the leaves you can eat, and the flowers, and quite an intense woodiness. Delicious. I mean, really, really delicious. Possibly not everybody's cup of tea, but lovely. So I'll pop those in the basket, and Ben will dry these in the kitchen back at Timber Yard, and they take on a more intense flavour, as does most when it's dried, and that will become part of his. There'll be some nice sea salt, some black pepper, and some yarrow dried to season with. It's a great addition to your sort of spice and dried food cupboards. And there's some leaves there, young leaves without the flowers. We were talking about sorrel earlier, and this is another variety of sorrel, going just about to flower actually. This is sheep sorrel, and it's got that lovely, let's see if we can find a perfect leaf. Here we go. Yeah, it's got that lovely kind of shield, or is it a shield? I don't know what it is, but it's got that very unusual shape. Same flavour as the common sorrel that we picked earlier. So yeah, that will probably do me for today. I think we've what have we got? We've got a great selection, from pineapple chamomile to apples and brambles, a bit of yarrow, some dead nettles and other bits and pieces. So enough probably for a salad tonight, and a pudding, and maybe a bit to go into a stock for a soup. Who knows? So yeah, what a great way to spend an hour early in the morning. Everybody else is just getting up, or a lot of people are still just getting up, and we've been out and enjoyed, this spot, a stone's throw from the centre of Edinburgh, and it's all there. It's kind of life in a basket. So yeah, foraging. I really enjoy time foraging. Thanks.